Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SpotOn Spotlight. I'm Ian Murray, the president of SpotOn Productions, where we help companies and organizations create bespoke video that inspires. And that leads us very well into our guest for today. I've gotten to know him over some speaking engagements, reading his books. All around fantastic guy. He's an author, a coach. And without further ado, I would love to introduce you to today's guest, Cory Carlson. Cory, thank you for joining me and welcome to the SpotOn Spotlight.
Ian, thank you very much for having me, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So, quickly, tell me a little bit about being an author in the Rise community and kind of what you've been able to build.
Well, thanks. I published two books. The first one's Win at Home First, and I wrote the book because I lost at home first. And so as I was able to, start winning at home again, I put that together in a book to help other leaders to realize that it's not an either or. You can have success at home and work, and instead of one or the other. So that was the book Win at Home First. And then my second book was Rise and Go. And I went all into coaching March 1st, 2020, right when COVID happens, and then lost a significant amount of revenue and was basically knocked down. And I was frustrated, mad. I left corporate America to go build this coaching. And for me, a man of faith. And so I was frustrated. God, like, what happened? I did my part. What about you?
I took this step.
Yeah. And I was taken on a journey that over those next few months, and Rise and Go is actually a phrase that is mentioned in the New Testament at 3 different times in Acts 8, 9, and 10, where God told people to rise and go. That's in the ESV, English Standard Version. So for me, that was a little bit of, I just need to rise and go and get out of my pity party and get back to work. So those are the 2 books I wrote. If I ever write a 3rd book, you're probably going to know, something happened in that guy's life. Because whenever he writes, there was a bad thing that happened. And then you asked about Rise Community. For Rise Community, a couple reasons, Ian, why I launched Rise Community. One was I have some amazing clients, just awesome one-on-one clients. That's a bulk of my business of what I do is helping men win at home and win at work. And I just have great clients. And there'd be times I talk to a client and saying, hey, Keaton, you need to meet Brad, the great guys, and try to connect people together. So that was a piece of it. The second was in one of my quiet times, I just felt this nudge that it was time to launch a community where men can come together and talk about how to get better in their leadership at home, at work, and in their faith. And I heard this prompting. I ignored it for a little bit because there was a part of me is like, no one's going to sign up. There's already a ton of communities out there. We don't need another one. And I ignored it, for a few months. And eventually it was like, I want to do this. And I am so grateful that I was obedient to that call. We've got as of this recording, we have 105 men that are inside this community. Awesome. And we are seeing life change, whether it's at home or it's at work. And we'll get into some specifics, I'm sure, during our call. But there you go. The books and Rise Community.
Very cool. And I love what you do because I think in our culture and society, men are just told to like, hey, buckle down, go to work, get it done, be the provider, and stuff suffers, and we don't talk about those things. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today to really help other men understand why it's so important to be in community and talk about those win at home, win at work. Mm-hmm. So you work with a lot of high capacity men who often really look successful from the outside, but feel very isolated on the inside. Why do you think men today are more disconnected and overwhelmed than ever?
I think there's a variety of reasons that takes place. One is all the KPIs, those key performance indicators in our life by most, kind of world standards, if you will, are at work. There's KPIs. If you hit these numbers, you get promoted. If you do this, you'll get the raise. But at home, in our personal life, there aren't those KPIs. So we don't have a measuring stick, and therefore many of us are just drawn to the work.
Yeah.
We do well, we get affirmed. Where at home, we say something, our kids roll our eyes, or our wife thinks that's a dumb idea. But at work, there's KPIs, positive affirmations, and pretty much all, lots of times, and so we end up winning in the wrong places. And work is a great place to win if you're also winning in your personal life at home. And so you just see men that are crushing at work, but at the same time, they just quietly start to lose at home. They start to lose in their spiritual journey. They start to lose in their friendships because they're spending time working, traveling, emails, LinkedIn, whatever that is, and then they stop to forget to ask their wife to go on a date. They aren't engaging with friends and reaching out. And over time, this just drift causes leaders to be alone and isolated. And so that's really how we get here. Is they're just just disconnected because they haven't been investing in intentional time with spouse, kids, friends, and it's all been about work.
And and I don't remember where and what I've heard and read from you, but you're replaceable at work. If something happens, they'll replace you at work. At home, your kids aren't going to replace their dad. Your wife hopefully isn't going to replace her husband. So, it's very important that you show up at home because you're not replaceable there.
Absolutely. For me, Ian, and maybe you got some similar numbers to me, but over my 20-year corporate career, I had 18 different bosses. And some of those bosses right now, I don't know where they live. I don't even know if they're all still alive. But I have one family, yep. One spouse, 3 kids. And that is really what matters. A couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to give the eulogy at my father-in-law's funeral. And as I was putting together the message and asking people, tell me about him or give me a story, it was we didn't talk about his bank account. We didn't talk about his achievements and how many zeros in his bank account. We talked about how he loved, how he cared, how he served his family, his friends, and his different coworkers. That's what we're going to be remembered for. But in this chase for success, we often forget that component. And we just think about climbing that next, mountain. And it's just a great reminder in this conversation. Thanks for letting us do this, Ian, because it helps people zoom out and be like, oh, wait, there's more to life.
You mentioned that men especially have KPIs at work. And it's very, I don't know if easy, but men are intentional at work, but they often, wing it at home. What does intentional leadership look like in a marriage and family life at home?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll provide some answers. They're not all going to be, the right order, but some intentional metrics. And I put together a dashboard in my own life, and I share it with my clients of dashboard. And just some of the highlights on there is going on dates with your spouse. At least 2 times a month. And this doesn't include going to galas or events where, like in my marriage, when we go usually a gala or some event,
we
walk in together, and before you know it, we go different directions. Yep. I'm talking over here, she's talking over there. Same thing with double dates. Double dates don't necessarily count as a date. A date is when you go out to eat. Doesn't have to be fancy or expensive, but you're just talking. Phones are away and you're engaging with each other. And I know for some people, as they hear this, they don't want to go on dates because dates are boring for many people. And that was true for Holly and I, because we would just go out to eat and all we would do is talk about logistics to kids' activities and bills. So we switched that up in our life. On Sunday nights, we have a logistics date, basically. It's us 2. We get a bottle of wine, we pull out our phones, and we go through the week. Who's picking up our son from basketball? Who's doing this with our daughter? What are some of the different appointments we have? It's cool because I get to share with her meetings or talks I'm excited about throughout the week. maybe some prayer requests. For her, same thing. I get to learn about different activities in her life. And then when we go on a date, we don't have to talk about logistics. We may touch base on it,
Yeah.
but we don't have to consume our whole evening just talking about logistics. And that's great. So tracking how often you go on a date with your spouse, one-on-one time with kids. Same thing, depending on the age of the kids, they may be really young, and it's just getting that intentional time, no phone, where you're playing with them. As they get older, it involves going to get an ice cream or eventually coffee. I've got a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old daughter, and now it looks like going and sitting at a coffee place and having a good conversation.
I was going to say, I love seeing you on LinkedIn post those moments where you spend that intentional time with your daughters.
Thank you. Cool. And I do it because my kids love it. And when they kind of share it with their friends, they're doing, I get back that the friends wish they did that with their parents. I mean, kids want that attention from us.
Yeah.
And so we need to give to it. It's a way to pour into them. Just some other random ideas on your own personal KPIs. How many times you get into the gym? Are you reading books? What time you going to bed? Are you hanging out with friends, finding friend time? What does vacations look like throughout the year? And so those are just some of the different ideas of what we'll hit just to make sure you got some personal KPIs.
I feel I'm sitting here checking off boxes in my head. I was like, man, I need to do better at that one. I need better at that one. Like what you give attention to gets done and gets handled. But I'm like books. Like I'm terrible about books. Like I know I need to do it, but I need to set some time to do it. So those are really good good points to focus on.
Yeah, I would say, Ian, we don't have a time management problem. All of us have the exact same amount of time, 168 hours a week. But what we have is a priority management problem. Because I have a client who has 9 kids, runs a $60 million business, and he is engaged with his family.
That's awesome.
They have family dinners. They hang out throughout the week. Very engaged. Now, does he know every single thing going on in news and social media feed? Probably not. I have another client, runs about the same size business, only has 2 kids. And when I ask him about family dinners, he says, no, we are too busy. We have a lot going on. I've got happy hours. I got these networking events. I'm traveling for work. Then it's, okay, well, what about when you're driving your teenage boy to practice? Well, what's the conversations like in the car? I mean, I don't know. We don't talk a lot. I mean, he's in the passenger seat. He's got his AirPods in. He's playing a game. I'm usually on the phone or listening to a podcast myself. 2 different guys running about the same size business. One of them can find time to be with his 9 kids. The other struggles to find time to be with his 2 kids. It's not a time management problem. It's a priority management problem. And so what I want to help leaders is just bring an awareness to, hey, where are you at with your spouse? Where are you at with your kids? What about friends, working out, spiritual capital, intellectual capital, and just keep growing. And it brings awareness. And once you can name it, then you can start to, work to basically defeat it.
That's great insight too, because it is. I will admit, it's so easy to get on the hamster wheel of routine. I've got 3 kids. 2 of them one's a competitive dancer that's on a travel team. She has practice 4 days a week. I've got one that's currently playing futsal, indoor soccer, and basketball. So you got practices and games for all of those. So it is like my wife and I do the divide and conquer. We do the, she's taking this, I'm taking that. We eat dinner at 8:30 at night. Then we got to get homework. So it is hard in the hustle and bustle. But I think that's a great point to be intentional and say, like, how could we figure out how to do this? Or where are those moments in the car where you can be intentional with your kids? So that's...
Ian, I'll share a story, and maybe this helps the listeners, is because you mentioned dance, and it reminded me of a time when I was taking my daughter. She was a competitive dancer as well, and taking her to and from practice every night. And I would drive, and then when I get in the car with her, I had this like guilt where I better teach her something. I'm her dad. I better share a scripture with her or something I learned in coaching today, and I want to pass on to her. It's my job to soak all this up and make sure she is learning. And so she'd hop in the car. I'd start sharing something with her, and often rolled eyes. And just frustrated. And then I would get mad, and it just wasn't great. I took this whole situation to my quiet time of like, how do I do this better? And what I ended up hearing, from God in this quiet time was basically ask me, pray about it before each of the drives. And Ian, what ended up happening was as I would go to pick up my daughter from dance, I would just basically pray and ask, is today's ride home about, like, are we going to listen to Taylor Swift music and just have the windows down and sing and talk? Or do I share something from my morning devotion or coaching, something from her or something I learned from the day and share it with her? And it was wild. I would get clarity on listen to music or share something. And the days we listened to music, it was great. I loved it. I didn't feel guilty like I lost an opportunity, but instead we were connecting relationally. And then on the days where I got the clarity of share something, go deep, she engaged. It was
That's cool.
awesome. She didn't roll her eyes. She was all in. And I just changed my posture to one of just trying to be open to what those car rides were. But the difference, Ian, of me versus the other times is I was just being intentional and aware of what does she need, not like what am I trying to shove down her throat. Right. So, anyways, if that helps any of the listeners, then that's good.
I love it. So moving kind of into that coaching in the Rise community, one theme that I've seen is leaders need outside perspective. What happens when men try to white-knuckle life alone without having that community that you talk about?
It leads to burnout. I mean, it leads to frustration. I run into a lot of leaders when they're trying to do it by themselves. They don't have community. They don't have a coach. When they just do it by themselves, they get burned out. And the reason we get burned out, Ian, is we don't forget what we do or how to do it. We just forget why we do it. And we start losing sight of our purpose. We start losing sight of what our why is. And whether it's one-on-one coaching or in the Rise community, we will walk through content to help individuals to be, hey, what is your personal vision statement? Do you understand what your personal vision statement is? And it helps people kind of figure out what that why looks like. Also, community. Community itself, if you hop on calls in Rise, you get to hear what other people are doing. Not only the good things that they're doing, of I went on a date with my spouse, or I went and hung out with some guys, or I did a trail run, or whatever the activity is. It gives you a little bit of kind of inspiration. Oh, I need to do that as well.
Pure learning.
Yeah. But also at the same time, not only do we get inspiration to hear of the great things they're doing, we also get vulnerability inside the community where guys are stumbling, where guys feel insecure, where guys just can't figure out how to get some movement in their work or in their marriage. And they share that in the community. And what that does for all of us, even myself when I get to hear it, is, hey, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that has kids roll their eyes, have a spouse that gets frustrated with us from time to time, or lose clients, or get a no from a prospect.
Yeah.
And you start to realize that with community, you get both the inspiration, but you also just get that community feel that, hey, you're not alone. And that's what gets people going. Because, Ian, as you know, the lone wolf will get taken out.
Yeah.
And that may sound, extreme and wild, but how that happens when you get burned out and tired and frustrated, you don't reach out to friends. You don't text friends. You come home, you sit on the couch, you watch TV, you scroll your phone, have some beer, have some pizza, and before you know it, you're just drifting into isolation. And you use work as an escape, as a coping mechanism. I know there's many men and women, but men that will, if marriage is not going well or they're feeling lonely, they just go do work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got emails. Let me go clean my email inbox. Let me work on LinkedIn, because they can kind of bury the part of their life they're not excited about and just work, which leads to burnout.
I'm a big fan. I truly believe that we were meant to be in community with other people for so many reasons. Like you mentioned, learning from each other, helping support each other when things aren't going well. And even that accountability piece too, having somebody that, I'm having trouble with this, I'm going to do these things, having somebody to follow up with and hold you accountable. Talk to me about what healthy accountability looks like for men.
Healthy accountability is both encouragement and challenge. I mean, it is, hey, yeah, go do it. You've got this. But also at the same time, it's a challenge. Like, man, you've been talking about losing weight for a while, or you've been talking about, dating your spouse. Or you've been, talking about getting up earlier, doing quiet time, whatever it is. But it's both invitation and challenge. What we want to do as leaders and friends and people inside communities, we want to invite people into a relationship. Like, do you know their spouse's name, their kids' names, what they like, what motivates them? So we want to invite them into that relationship, but then we want to challenge them into responsibility. We want to help them live into who they were made to be. And you can get that from healthy accountability, which is both just truth and grace.
And that's got to help people with that growth that you talk about. Like all these pieces coming to community together. How have you seen that really fuel growth for men?
Ian, it's awesome. I mean, seeing people come inside Rise community, I mean, it is a multiplier for people to make change in their life, because it's happening. We have our calls every Monday, but then we also have a community where people are engaging throughout the week. And someone will post a picture about how them and their spouse went out on a date, or one of the members and their daughters went and had coffee, kind of is what we mentioned. And you just start to see it, and it just gets men to say, you know what, I can do that. I want to do more. And it's really cool. Neat to see the impact that is happening from the accountability. Even if no one ever says, hey, Ian, you need to do this. Hey, Cory, you need to do this. There's just this accountability. When you see some other people doing stuff, you get that kind of, prick in your spirit of, I better pick it up a notch.
Yeah.
Even if there's no finger pointing in the chest, there is just this element of, hey, I know I can do better. And when you surround yourselves with high capacity leaders that are pushing themselves to grow, not just at work, and these men are doing great things at work. They're CEOs of companies all the way down to solopreneurs, but they're all looking to get better. But we're not just here talking about money and bank accounts. It's also other areas of your life, because we wear many, many hats.
Yeah. You touched on this earlier, because you said your book 2, Rise and Go, came from a scripture. Obviously, faith is a deep part of your life, and I think it's a unique offering you have. You bring that into your coaching. You bring that into your communities. How does spiritual grounding, things like prayer, scripture, discipline, quiet times, those things you talked about earlier, how do you see those shaping a man's character and leadership?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks. There's a few reasons I see. One, it brings me a posture of gratitude. If I don't slow down, and actually in my quiet time, I write down things I'm grateful for, part of praise. Mm-hmm. If I don't do that, if I don't take time to praise God for the good in my life, it will become pride. Because it's like, yeah, look what I did. I'm awesome. I'm amazing. And so for me, having my quiet time, doing time in scripture, one, it helps with just having a posture of gratitude. Next, it helps with humility, because I realize I'm pretty small. I'm pretty little when it comes to all the things going on in this world. And so it does allow me a posture of humility, and just to see how many moving pieces are happening. For me also, it's a reminder of just provision and protection that God offers. Not only do you get to read cool stories in scripture where that's happened, but as I do my quiet time, as I'm journaling, like the old me, Ian, when the KPIs of work were going down or my sales numbers weren't hitting, I just would work harder. I would strive more. It's me, me, me. And not that if I lose a client, I still go reach out and try to find more.
Oh, absolutely.
But the heart posture is different because I'm reminded through my quiet times I've been provided for before. I will be provided for again. And it helps just, slow me down, gets me more emotional, balanced, and self-aware.
I love that perspective on that mind shift of how you interpret the things that happen to you in the world around you. Really, that attitude of gratitude and being thankful and like you said, avoiding the pride. For men who might be listening to this, who might feel alone or feel that burnout, or the being stretched thin between work and home and trying to find that balance, what is one very intentional, maybe easy first step that a man can take in the next week or two to move towards community, clarity, purpose?
Well, I think depending on where they're feeling the lowest in, I would take action there. So as we've been talking, if someone's feeling this prompting of, man, my marriage is not where it needs to be, take action there. Of all the things we talked about today, there's a lot of information here. And as I listen to different podcasts, as I listen to different messages or talks, if we don't take action on one thing, we won't do anything. Information plus implementation leads to transformation. So my hope for all these listeners is they just grab one thing and do it. So if that prompting is, man, I need to work on my marriage, do that. Don't worry about anything else. Go for the marriage and go on a date. If it's, I've not been very engaged with my kids lately, great. Take action there. If you're feeling lonely from a friend standpoint, text a friend to get together for coffee, lunch, beer. Odds are they're sitting on the couch waiting for a text because they're not sending the text. If we're going to be leaders in this space, we need to go first. And so text that friend that's coming to mind that you want to reach out to. And if you want something such as a community like Rise, reach out to me or go to rise-community.com and join us. It is just fantastic. We've only been going at a year and we're already 100 plus people. It's only going to get better because lives are changing. They're telling their friends. Matter of fact, Ian, one member just said he was so grateful for this. He asked if he could sponsor someone else hopping in. I'm like, yeah? Why would I say no to that? But he did. He paid for his buddy who's not in a financial situation to put the money forward, or at least is choosing not to. But he's in. And it's awesome. And so we have neat things like that are happening where people are like, hey, I want more people in here because it's making a difference in my life. I want to help other people.
And I think that just goes to show men are craving that community and need a place where they can connect with other people. And I like what you said. Start with one thing. Start with the marriage. Start with the kids. And that has to, you start working on that. That has to have ripple effects through everything else in your life as well.
Absolutely. Though, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about winning at home first, believing it shows you show up better at work if you do it. Because if you're losing at home, if your marriage is not going good, your engagement with your kids isn't going well. Friend standpoint, you're feeling alone and isolated. When you show up at work, you are less confident. And you are also distracted. With cell phones, with smartwatches, you could be at your 9 a.m. meeting at work, trying to be locked in the conversation. You get a text from your spouse continuing the fight from the morning. Or maybe it's a teenage daughter, or maybe it's a son that's not responding well to you. It gets you off your game. That happens kind of throughout the day, and then come about 3:30, you start to think about the re-entry back in your home. Oh man, when I walk in, I'm going to say this. And then they'll probably say this and I'll say that. But if you are winning at home, marriage is strong, engagement with kids and friends is going well, when you show up to work, you could be your whole self. There's nothing to hide. You can be confident. You can be secure. And because you're winning at home first. So that's one of the main reasons. It's like it makes you better at work when you do, in fact, win at home first.
That's great advice. I just wanted to share. Adam says hi, Cory.
Hey, Adam, what's up, man? Follow Adam if you don't on social media. He's fun to follow.
That's awesome. So, Cory, this has been great advice. I love the idea of the weekly planning meeting with your wife, because that's something we are always trying to figure out. And we do. You date night, you tend to talk about logistics. So I love having that logistics kind of same page planning meeting. It doesn't have to be huge, but a glass of wine is a great way to kind of approach that. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, it makes it fun. I mean, if it's not fun, my wife's not gonna want to do it with me. I think there's many times she's like, "Stop coaching me. Let's just be married." It's like, yeah, good point.
That's awesome. So the last question I'd love to ask people is, what's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Business advice.
It could be life advice too.
What's that?
I said it could be life advice too.
Well, one thing I would say is we just cannot take our identity to work. Meaning, your identity is not that you're president of sales. Your identity is not that you're CEO or entrepreneur, or you work for this Fortune 500 company, or you make six figures, or whatever it is. We can't take our identity to that. Because when we are results driven, when our identity goes results, what happens when it goes away? I was president of sales for a company. We were owned by private equity. We were unsuccessful going to market to be sold. Someone actually did say they want to buy us. About the 45th day of the due diligence period, they backed out. The private equity group that owned us said, all right, we're going to do some things differently. A few people got terminated. I was one of them. Had I been terminated a few years earlier, that probably would have wrecked me, because my identity was in a fancy title like president of sales. My identity was in I was making the most money I ever made up to that point. Instead, when I got terminated, that place where I worked, how much money I was making did not define who I was. And so as leaders, don't take your identity to what you do, because it can change. Instead, take your identity to who you are. And that's thinking of even just like your thought life, your I am statements. That for me, I'm a beloved son of God. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I am a coach and author and speaker. That may change, but we have to put our identity in something greater than our work, because it will change. We're all going to retire eventually, and so we can't let that rock our world. So that would be my work advice. For now. I could go on further, but that'll be it for today.
That's great. Cory, I've really enjoyed our time together. Where can people find you online if they want to learn more? How can they connect with you?
Active on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a place. The website is CoryMCarlson.com. There you'll find podcasts that I've done, blogs, access to the books, access to coaching, speaking, or Rise community.
Awesome. Cory, thank you so much for being a guest today. Really appreciate the conversation. I think it's really important for men to hear about some of these things that aren't talked about a lot.
Oh, thanks, Ian. And thanks for helping get this message out there. I really appreciate the support and the opportunity to talk. So thank you.
My pleasure. If you've enjoyed today's episode of the SpotOn Spotlight, tap that follow button on Spotify so you don't miss the next inspiring conversation. And if something in today's episode resonated with you, share it with a friend or a colleague who would get value from it too, because ideas are better when they're shared. Thank you for joining us on the SpotOn Spotlight, where we shine a light on what makes business better, one story at a time. We'll see you on the next one.